Why do I like shooting in the rain? Well, I normally don't, but in this particular case, I thought it would be an interesting time to be able to capture moments that you normally don't see because we don't typically go shooting or filming in the rain. I love this park in general because it has easy access to the water and waterfowl there, as well as the foliage on the trees and even the berries on the bushes. And I just feel like it's an all-around great moment to film and capture. What sort of things did you find when you went out? And this time, if you can look at me and not the camera. Oh, look at you and not the camera? Oh, sorry about that. So what did I find? Well, I love this park because I can find a lot of wintering waterfowl in the pond areas. So everything from like buffleheads to long-tailed ducks, hooded mergansers, and even the more common ones like mallard ducks, swans, and then the birds like cardinals, robins, and they just freely swim in the lake and fly in the trees minding their own business. So I really get to see them or observe them from an outsider's point of view. And it's really great to be able to see their behavior up close. So there's a lot of variety, and that's why I keep going back to this area all the time. I also really enjoy capturing the details of the moment, whether that's the rain pelting on the surface of the water, the rain on the branches of the trees. I think it really sets the mood for the video that I'm filming. Can I see some more footage in the rain? These ducks may look close, but they're actually really far away from me. I'm shooting at a focal length of around 600 millimeters. And what I really like about this lens, the 180 to 600 millimeters, is that it's so versatile and quite portable as well. So at 180 millimeters, I can actually focus in on my subject. Once I have that focus, I can actually go all the way to 600 millimeters and then zoom in and capture that moment that way. So it's really convenient. That's pretty nice. You mentioned 600 millimeters. What equipment are you using to film all this? I use all Nikon equipment actually, so... What are you, some kind of Nikon ambassador or something? Yes, I am actually. That's not awkward at all. Oh, stop filming, get that away from me. Anyway, I typically use the Nikon Z9 and the Z800mm f6.3 or the Z1 80 to 600mm f5.6 to 6.3. I find either of those lenses will produce excellent footage. What resolution do you film in? For the most part, I do film in 4K. I also film in 8K when I know I want to crop in a little bit, but still retain that good 4K quality footage. And your frame rate? I normally film in 30 frames per second, but I do often film in 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second when I want to do slow motion to be able to showcase the fast action on the waterfowl. I love slow motion because it allows us to see things that we normally can't see with the unaided eye. What's your settings like? Settings for my video, you mean? Yeah, I mean, what else? Since I typically film at sunrise or shortly after when it's in low light scenarios, I usually keep my aperture at its widest. So for the lenses that I use, it's typically about f6.3. My shutter speed is then usually about double of what my frame rate is. So if my frame rate is 30 frames per second, then my shutter speed is about 1/60th of a second to maintain the motion that our eyes are comfortable in seeing. My ISO is then set to auto to adjust itself automatically according to the ambient light. So it must be quite high if you're shooting at sunrise then? That's correct. I'm often in the thousands. Sometimes I have it at 12,800, but it still produces excellent results. Do you have a hard time focusing on your subject? No, not really. I mean, you just need to know your camera and its capabilities. For example, if I'm using wide area autofocus and it can't track the head of the bird that I'm trying to focus on, then I'll usually switch to either custom focusing mode or 3D, and it does a quicker job of being able to focus on the head of that bird. What's this custom mode you're talking about? Oh, I really love the custom area autofocus on the Nikon Z9. It allows you to customize that focusing area really specific to your needs. So with waterfowl, for example, the head of the waterfowl is usually near the bottom to the middle of your frame. So I set one of my custom area autofocuses to a thin horizontal line, and that makes it a lot easier for the camera to be able to focus specifically on the head when I move that horizontal line to the bottom of the frame. That sounds really useful. Is that a feature just on the Nikon Z9? No, it's actually available on the Nikon Z8 as well, and maybe the ZF. I'm not sure about that last one. So why not use your Nikon Z8 for filming or shooting birds then? Oh, I do sometimes, but the Nikon Z9 has a dedicated bird mode for focusing, and it's actually really good. It actually does pick out the birds or waterfowls a lot better than the general animal mode that the Nikon Z8 has. Not to say that the animal mode is bad by any means, but I find that if you narrow down the subject matter of your focusing, then it allows the camera to better its ability in focusing for that specific subject matter. Do you use a tripod? Do I use a tripod? Yes and no. I try and capture the birds at eye level. So to do this, I usually have the camera down right to the ground when I'm filming or taking a picture. And I can't really do this with a tripod, so I usually hand hold it, put it down to the ground and start shooting. If I'm sitting down, I actually sometimes lean my lens or the lens hood against my foot, and that helps it stabilize the footage or picture a little bit better. Really, the more you practice, the more you do these things, the better you get at it. So, what do you use to protect your equipment from the rain? Oh, I actually have a short video on that, so let's watch that instead. So many people have asked me what I use for my coverings during inclement weather, and I have to say it's really nothing that special. It's actually homemade with fabric bought from the local fabric store, and it's actually in two parts. The first covering here is for my body. Right now my Nikon Z9 is in here. The second covering right here is for the lens, and they're attached by Velcro actually right at this point here. And one of the importance of this lens here is actually, right now I have the Z180 to 600 millimeter. And the great thing about that is the size of the lens does not change as I change the focal length. So I don't have to change the covering accordingly. So the covering doesn't need to expand or contract depending on the size of the lens itself. So that's one of the benefits of having a constant length in your lens as you change the focal length. And right now, right here, I have my arm inlet for my body, and the underneath actually is wide open so that I can put my hand underneath, change the focusing or the focal length, and shoot that way. Another thing to note about this is that on the back, I have an opening for my eyepiece so that I can actually see through the eyepiece itself. And you can see here I have a clear vinyl attachment for the LCD screen in case I do want to use my LCD screen. So all in all, that's pretty much it. You can see that the water does repel off of it. This is not completely waterproof. It's actually meant more for snowy conditions. And if I were to do something similar for strictly rainy conditions like today, I would use more waterproof material like vinyl or something similar to what a raincoat would be made of. I think that pretty much wraps things up for this video. Now, is there anything else you want to add or tell the audience about filming in the rain? Yes, there is actually. I do think shooting or filming in the rain can be a lot of fun as long as you take the proper precautions in protecting yourself and your gear. I do get a lot of comments about people saying that they are afraid to take their gear out into the rain, especially if it's not weather sealed. And I totally understand where they're coming from because I actually did feel the same way as they did before. First and foremost, I do wear rain boots, rain pants, and jackets to keep myself dry. A soggy photographer is not a happy photographer. If you don't have anything fancy to protect your camera gear with, don't worry. I've covered my gear with plastic bags before without any issue. You know those thin plastic bags that you get at the grocery store to bag your fruits or veggies? You can use that and cut out a little hole at the other end so the lens can peek through it. It's not waterproof per se, but it can be water resistant, so it would allow you to take some photos for a little bit outside. Most times I carry a towel in my camera bag as well, so I can give my camera gear a quick pat to dry off the areas that my cover didn't protect it. For example, my 180 to 600 millimeter lens is quite large, so it did not get covered completely by the rain cover that I had. So after I stopped filming or shooting, a quick pat with the towel to dry off that end area where the rain got to will ensure that I won't have any water in places that I shouldn't have it. One other note is that if your zoom lens contracts and expands physically when you're zooming in and out, make sure you don't zoom in or out if there's water on the barrel itself. You do risk getting water inside your lens, and you don't want water inside your lens. For example, my Z24 to 120 millimeter does physically expand and contract when I zoom in and out. So if my barrel does get wet, then I never actually contract it back down to 24 millimeters. I leave it at that focal length for the rest of my shoot. Unless I have a towel, then I can actually pat that area dry and make sure it's completely dry before you actually move it back down to 24 millimeters. Otherwise, there are gaps in that lens barrel where water can actually go right into the lens itself. If you're cautious with the gear you have, then you should have no problems taking out your gear in any inclement weather. Something else I do is when I get home, I put all my gear in a small room. I pat it dry so I don't see any more water on the gear itself, and then I actually put the dehumidifier on for a little bit. And that ensures that any water droplets that I don't see on the gear will evaporate and disappear off the gear itself as well. All right, thank you very much. I hope my tips have enabled you to feel a little bit more confident during inclement weather, and you do decide to perhaps shoot the next time it does rain or snow in your area. Thank you. Okay. Alright, well, I hope you liked this video about filming in the rain. Thanks for watching my video. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.